Good morning, fifth grade, or good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. So this is my third time recording this video. I hopefully have it figured out by now. So what we're gonna do today is pretend that you're in class. As you can see, I'm actually in our classroom right now. I will be in the classroom for Thursday and Friday probably, but not for the following week in April, because I'm not sure what my plans are gonna be. So we're gonna pretend that we're in social studies class. So you need to get your textbook that we sent home with you to page 283. We're gonna take notes together. It's gonna go by more quickly than we would be in class just because you guys are not here. I will show you the notes, the PowerPoint, but I'm not going to go slow. So if you need to pause it, feel free to do that. And you can always go back and watch too. All right, so I'm gonna read to you because you guys are not here. So if you don't wanna hear my voice, just mute me and you can read in your head. All right, here we go. All right, and this is my teacher textbook, so I'm gonna try and hide some of the answers from you all. All right, so here we go. Page 282. Chapter 6, lesson 4. Your notes are gonna be the ones that we put in your folder on Tuesday morning if you were present in class. All right, here we go. The preamble is the introduction to the Constitution. It describes the purpose of a government, which is to provide citizens with a fair, safe, and peaceful way of life. The government of the United States still has these goals today. The preamble uses the phrase, a more perfect union, to mean bringing the country together. Leaders hope to strengthen and unify the country. The framers wanted to make it clear that all citizens must obey the law, but are protected from misuse of power by the government. This idea or principle is called rule of law. It is addressed in the phrase establish justice. This phrase means that everyone would be treated fairly and equally in the judicial system and also reflects the personal safety promise in the Constitution. The phrases domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare reflect the framers' desire to ensure safety from foreign threats, protection from armed forces, and the well-being of citizens. The preamble to the Constitution stands in stark contrast to the preamble to the Articles of Confederation. The article stated an agreement between states. The preamble is to the Constitution states an agreement between the federal government and the people of the United States. So here we go to the notes. Okay. So the introduction to the Constitution. The preamble is the intro to the Constitution. The rule of law is the idea that all citizens must follow the laws and that they will be protected from government abuse of power. Domestic tranquility is peace within a union. And the preamble to the Constitution states an agreement between the federal government and the people of the United States. Remember that BT stands for between. Again, you can pause this. I'm going to keep going because the video is going to get really long and I don't know if I'm going to be able to upload it. And I'm sorry for the shakiness. This is all my hand doing this. I don't have a fancy tripod or anything like that. All right, moving on. The framers carefully crafted certain parts of the Constitution to encourage a robust economy and to protect the government in lean times. The inability of the federal government to borrow money or levy taxes has been a major obstacle during the Revolution. As a result, the spending clause in Article 1, Section 8 states that Congress can levy taxes to pay the country's debts and to provide for the common defense. It also allows Congress to borrow money quickly when needed. These powers are limited. However, the power to borrow depends on the country's current credit. Okay, there is a question on this page. Number 1, the preamble to the United States Constitution is an agreement between what two groups? I want you to kind of read over this and see if you can figure it out. We will discuss this when I go live later today. All right, we're going to turn the page. Page 284. In the same section, Congress is given the power to regulate commerce. Before the Constitution, there was a lack of interstate trade or trade between the states because the Articles had not given Congress the authority to regulate it or to resolve disputes. The Commerce Clause made trade and businesses between states worthwhile. The Patent and Copyright Clause, also in Article 1, Section 8, states that artists and scientists' writings and discoveries are protected for a specific time. The clause helps promote science and the arts. The proclamation setting aside money for a purpose clause in Article 1, Section 9 allows Congress to decide how to use public funds, to limit money, and to keep a record of its spending. Article 1, Section 10 is commonly referred to as the Contracts Clause. It seeks to prevent abuse of power by the states. It forbids states from coining money, levying tax on imports and exports, or interfering with private contracts. This clause can be used to protect a wide range of business dealings. Okay, we're going to go back to our notes. The impact of the Constitution. Okay, we have two vocab words. Levy is to collect or impose. We talked about levying taxes in our last lesson too. Commerce is business or trade between states or between countries or states. The Commerce Clause made trade and business between states worthwhile, and the Patent and Copyright Clause protect writing and discoveries. Which means if you create something, like an entrepreneur, if you discover something and create something, you're gonna want to protect it. That way no one can steal your ideas and basically steal your money. So, all right, back to reading. We are on page 285, making changes to the Constitution. At certain times, it is necessary to change or add to the Constitution. The Founding Fathers allowed this to happen. For an amendment to be added to the Constitution, a 2/3 majority in both the House and Senate must vote to propose the amendment. Following the proposal, 3/4 of the state legislators must ratify the amendment. Can anybody tell me what ratify means? If you remember, I think it's one of your vocab words. There are now 27 amendments to the Constitution. They reflect changing attitudes and changes in history. I think that is it for until we go our second notes. Let me check. Yes, okay, so we have more notes to take. Making changes to the Constitution. At certain times, it is necessary to change or add to the Constitution. For an amendment to be added to the Constitution, a 2/3 majority in both the House and Senate must vote to propose the amendment. There are now 27 amendments to the Constitution. Okay, there is question number 2 on that page too. So if you can read over that and see if you can figure out the answer. I will tell you the answer is going to be on page 284. The question is to summarize how today's economy will be different if some sections of the Constitution did not exist. Choose one section to focus on. Okay, back to our notes and reading. We're on page 286. African Americans get the right to vote. Today, all Americans can vote in federal or local elections, but this was not always the case. Only free white men who owned land could vote for the first 100 years of the nation's history. African Americans and women struggled for many years for the right to vote. African Americans were enslaved until after the Civil War in 1865. The 13th Amendment ended slavery. The 15th Amendment gave African Americans the right to vote. Although the amendment was ratified in 1870, there was a great deal of discrimination or unfair treatment based on someone's race. To discourage them from voting in the South, African Americans had to pay taxes at the polls and pass literacy tests, which means they had to prove that they could read. In 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed due to the work of activists such as Martin Luther King Jr. The winter before the Voting Rights Act became law, King had begun the Southern Christian Leadership Conference campaign in Selma, Alabama. Its goal was to get such laws passed. The passage of the Voting Rights Act was an important moment in the civil rights movement. Okay, we're going to go back to notes. Sorry if you all are getting seasick, car sick. I would be. Okay. Only free white men who owned land could vote for the first 100 years of the nation's history. African Americans were enslaved until after the Civil War in 1865, and we will get to the Civil War. I'm pretty sure it's in chapter 8. The 13th Amendment ended slavery, and the 15th Amendment gave African Americans the right to vote. In 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed due to the work of the activists. All right, we're going to go to page 287, women's suffrage. In 1920, the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. This amendment was the result of a long struggle for equality. The suffrage movement spanned several generations and required a great deal of persistence. Suffragists, advocates of women's voting rights, organized conferences, protests, and marches, drew up petitions, and even went on hunger strikes in the effort for their voices to be heard. Most who were involved in the movement at the beginning did not live to see the 19th Amendment become law, but their work changed the United States. And then there is a question for this one. Number 3, it says, in the boxes next to the images, identify and write the amendment that affected voting rights for the group pictured and the year it was passed. So you're going to have to go to this picture, figure out what amendment and what year, and then this picture here, what amendment and then what year. All right, we have 2 more things of notes. So back to notes for women's suffrage. In 1920, the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. Suffrage is the right to vote. Suffragists, as advocates of women's voting rights, organized conferences, protests, and marches. All right, we're on our last page. Supreme Court decisions. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the country. The Constitution established the jurisdiction or official power of this court. There are 9 Supreme Court justices. They hear cases that have to do with federal and state laws and how they affect the rights of citizens. In 1954, for example, the Supreme Court heard Brown versus Board of Education. This decision in this case stated that state laws allowing segregation, which is separating people based on race, were unconstitutional or against the law. By making decisions on these cases, the justices check the actions of Congress and the president. The power of the Supreme Court is limited by the other 2 branches as well. The president nominates a justice, and then Congress has to approve the appointment. In 1917, William Tyler Page wrote American's Creed and entered it into a patriotic contest. He referenced many historical documents, including the Declaration of Independence and the preamble to the Constitution. It was accepted by the House of Representatives on April 3rd, 1918. And, excuse me, and right here is a section of it. I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, who just powers are derived from the concept of the governed, a democracy and a republic, a sovereign independent nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon these principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity, for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support the Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies. And then for number 4, you already saw the answers, but it says identify the parts of the American Creed that you think most likely came from the preamble to your Constitution. Underline those parts. So they underlined a perfect union, freedom, and justice. Okay, last set of notes. Here we go. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the country. There are 9 Supreme Court justices, and the power of the Supreme Court is limited by the other 2 branches as well. All right, so I am going to assign your homework, which it might already actually be uploaded. But remember, if you have any questions, I'm going to go live at around 10 o'clock, and I would like you to come with answers number 1 and the answer to number 2. I might even pull some popsicle sticks. Maybe I'll take those home, and we'll do those then. All right, I will see you all soon. Bye.